16, I got thrown out of the house, and I was on my own. I worked. I had no mailing address. I lived out of my car, slept down at the beach, took showers, went to work. I did that for the whole summer. And things got kind of screwed up, and life was spiraling out of control. That's when I decided to join the Marine Corps. And that was in 68. I was going to work, and I thought, well, I needed to put the brakes on, join the Marine Corps. Well, I joined the Marine Corps because, one, it was said to be the hardest branch of service. So if it was the hardest, that's the one I wanted. There was five of us that went through boot camp together, and I told them my goal was to go all the way through the 13 months, no Purple Hearts. Kind of made it that way. And for some of the things I did, I was surprised that I made it that way. I carried gun ammo all the time, and I got so tired of it that eventually I went to the weapons officer, and I turned and told him I want to get transferred to guns, and which I did. But going back a little bit, when I reported to An Hoa when I arrived, there was a fellow there. His name was Marquise, and he had immersion foot. Immersion foot is when you don't change your socks and your feet are always wet. And when we went to the bush, or when he came to the bush finally, his thing was when he became squad leader, he was going to have me walk point. And I told him it'd never happen. And afterwards, I got transferred to guns. And I was in guns for quite a while. And when he made squad leader, he came up and he says, well, we're going out on an ambush. We're going to walk point. And I says, nope, I'm in weapons from now on. You can't mess with me. And that's how it was for them then on. So I stayed in weapons. Some of the things that I did, I crawled into bunkers because Westmoreland's thing was body counts. So I was one of the guys that crawled into bunkers and pulled all the bodies out after a firefight or whatever. I started out in Taylor Common. I was in the mountains. I was in the mountains twice. We came back down, then we went back up again. After that, we came back down, went to the Arizona Territory. And I spent almost the rest of my time in the Arizona Territory or Ganoy Island. Maybe 2 weeks or whatever it was. I got hit. We were on an ambush, and they were prepping the top of the hill, and there was an explosion. I was on watch, and I saw this black object coming to me, and I had just enough time to turn my arm a little bit. It hit me flat, knocked me down, knocked all the blood out of the arm, and they called the corpsman up, and he came up and checked it, and by then the blood was rushing back into the arm. Did not break the skin at all. No blood loss whatsoever. And that was the first time I got hit, and never got hit again after that. I was in the rear for some reason. Anyway, we got hit that night, and the next day we had to walk the perimeter, and the procedure was the point man would get across the water or whatever it was, and then everybody else would go after him, and he would provide the security. And eventually it came my turn. And when the point man went across the river, I became the point man, that first time only. And when I went in the water and I was about halfway through the paddy dike, I stepped down and I heard the click. And the only thing I said was, oh shit, everybody get out of here. And then we called the engineers. I stood there until the engineers walked through the wire, and then they took it out. It turned out to be a box mine. And the guy that was going to pull the lever to set it off, the string was still there, and he was in the paddies maybe 50 yards away dead. So, living on borrowed time. I don't know the guys' names anymore, but we got going through an area, and we ran into the enemy, Parsons and another fella. They were right at the paddy dike, and on the other side of the paddy dike was the enemy. And Parsons would stand up and try and shoot the enemy, and then he'd go down, and the enemy would stand up and try and shoot him. And this Mexican guy, he just happened to stand up the same time the enemy did, and the enemy fired, and we saw him fall back, and we thought for sure he bought the farm. And it turned out that the round went between his flak jacket and his body. It went right through, and all it did was put a little nick on each part of his chest. And unfortunately, though, when we were back in the Arizona territory don't remember what part of it, he went out on an ambush and he wound up being killed on the ambush. But that was maybe a month or 2 months later. It was okay. We went up a lot of different mountains, and in the Marine Corps, there's no mountains, there's just hills. And we went up this one, it was 990 meters. And when we got to the top of that one, we could look down, after we cleared the LZ, we could look down on there and see the whole thing, all from there all the way almost to Da Nang. And when we got ready to leave the hill, all the helicopter did was lift its wheels off and went straight down. And it took us almost 2 days to get up that hill. When I went on patrol, I wore a T-shirt, a long-sleeve shirt, flak vest, and a towel around my neck. And I was the A gunner at the time. And when I became gunner, I wore the same equipment, because every once in a while we would get stuck out there. And I didn't want to get stuck out there and kind of freeze, because it got cold at night. And the long-sleeve shirt also kept me from getting cuts from the elephant grass, so that I didn't have to worry about that. In the beginning, I had the regular Marine Corps rucksack or pack, which is a little tiny thing. Eventually, I finagled the rucksack, which was a huge sack, and I carried everything in there, from an air mattress, plenty of socks, all the food I wanted, and I forget what the hell else. But as time went on, I wanted to get rid of it. So eventually I got rid of it, and I got an army pack, which had a metal frame on it, made it easier to carry on your back. But I also, as I told John McKay and Larry Bowman, I carried a coffee pot. And whenever I ran out of fresh ground coffee or ground coffee, I would always go up to one of them and have them when we got resupplied, order coffee for me. And I'd give them fresh coffee in the morning as in return. I carried a air mattress, and I carried a hammock. So when we settled down, if we were in the rice paddies, I'd blow up the air mattress and sleep on the air mattress. And if we were in a wooded area, I'd hang the hammock and sleep in the hammock. And then the other thing, when we went on patrol, I don't care where the patrol was, but I had a C4 pouch, or whatever they call it, and I'd fill it up with tins of crackers, and the crackers had cheese in it, or jelly, or peanut butter, but I'd go on patrol with that. So when we got volunteered to go support somebody else, I always had food with me. And then Armstrong and I, because of my coffee thing, every once in a while they'd screw it up, and I not only get the coffee, but I'd get tins or cans of vegetables, and Armstrong and I would make a stew. There's two fellas that I remember from the company. One, his name, they were both in mortars, and one's name was Bubblegum, and his nickname, and the other one was Antoine. And Antoine and I rotated at the same time. So when we got to San Francisco, when we left San Francisco to catch our flights, we were both going to Chicago, but he had a connecting flight to wherever he was going. And when we got off the plane and we were walking down, when we got into San Francisco airport, everybody kind of moved out of the way. When we got into Chicago, everybody parted, and we were walking down the center of the runway, and that was it. Or not the runway, but the concourse. Nobody talked about it. But in '85, when they came out with the movie Platoon, I went to see that movie, and it was as if I walked in, sat down, and walked out, because I got so engrossed in the movie that it was like reliving everything all over again. It was an interesting experience, and my reasons for going in there is my life was spiraling downhill, and I needed to put the brakes on. I did that, and when I got back to the States, what I did find out was that I had skills that I didn't know, and one of those skills was being able to manage people. And when I finally got hired, because in the beginning it was hard getting a job, but when I finally got hired and I was working for this company, and one of the fellows that was a plant manager came over and asked me what I wanted, and I looked straight at him and I told him, I want your job. And within a year and a half working for the company, I got into management, and I've been in management for my whole working career after that.